Hi, this is Jake for BandLab. With BandLab's included instruments and effects, you can make any kind of music you like. In this video, we'll show you how to make a hip house beat with swinging drums, funky guitars, and rolling bass. You can open this project yourself at the link in the video description. And if you find this guide useful, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be the first to know when new videos drop. I start by setting the project tempo to 124 BPM and the project key to E minor. The first element I add is a drum beat to bass the track around. I add a virtual instrument track and set the instrument to drum pads 909. I sequence kits on each beat with claps on the second and fourth beats, and open hats between each beat. I then turn snap to grid off and add closed hats between the 8th and 9th and 10th and 11th, 16th notes. I want these notes to be quieter so the beat feels more fluid, so I turn their velocity down to 64. I duplicate this bar out for the rest of the 4-bar clip. To duplicate notes or clips in BandLab, hold Option on Mac or Alt on Windows and drag them over. Next, I'd like to give the beats more hip-hop flavor with a breakbeat. I open BandLab Sounds and enter breakbeat into the search field. I open the Hip House Scratch Pack. I drag HHS 120 Break 10 2 bars into the project, using the loop handle to extend the sample to 4 bars. I set this track to minus 13.8 dB. I'd like to thin out this element's low end, so in the effects panel, I add a tone multi-filter effect. I put the effect in high pass mode and set the frequency to 500 Hz. I'd like some funky guitar in this project, so in BandLab Sounds, I return to the main page and search for funk. I open the Plucky Funk Guitar Pack and drag Plucky Funk Guitar 120 E minor E Guitar 33 2 bar into the project. Again, I loop this out to 4 bars in length using the loop handle. I also add a multi-filter to this track, again setting it to high pass mode. And this time, I use a frequency value of 300 Hz. Now I'd like to add a bass line. I add another instrument track and set this one to synth basses, lately bass. I sequence a simple 1-bar bass line that plays A, D, E. I loop this out for the whole 4-bar clip. Next, I'd like to add a string stab. I create a new instrument track and set it to strings, string orchestra staccato. I sequence simple chords that play A minor in the first inversion, C major in the second inversion, and A minor in the first inversion again. I'd like the stab to sound punchy, so in the effects panel I add a Dynamics BL1176. This makes this part very loud, so I set the output to minus 14.2 dB. To give the sound a slightly lo-fi feel, I add a distortion, bit crusher, setting the intensity to 30%, the bits to 8, and the mix to 100%. I also add a multi-filter set to high-pass mode with a frequency of 350 Hz. I'd like to have an old school hip hop style vocal in this track, so in BandLab's Sounds, I select the Loops tab, then set the instrument filter to voice and the genre filter to hip hop trap. I drag play of vocals 120 BPM C# minor into the project, truncating it to 4 bars by dragging the right hand edge of the clip to the left. This sample is a little quiet, so I add a BL1176, turning the output down to minus 4.7 dB to balance it with the rest of the elements. Now I'm going to add a percussion loop. In BandLab's Sounds, I clear the search filters and search for bongo. I drag Tropics Bongo into the project, looping it out for 4 bars. I feel like I have a good amount of material for the main part of the track, but I like to switch things up during the arrangement. So I want to create an organ section as well. I add another instrument track and set it to organs, clean fifth sine organ. I set this track to minus 1.8 dB. I program in a part that plays A, C, D, E, A, B. I duplicate this out onto the octave above to give it a fuller sound. I want this organ to have more life to it, so in the effects panel, I add a modulation, Vibe 2 effect, which gives the sound a touch of vibrato. I set the depth to 2.0. I also add a reverb, studio reverb, setting the size to 4% to help the part sound more natural. To help me create a compelling arrangement, I'd like a couple of extra elements to transition between sections. In BandLab's Sounds, I search for riser and drag speeding riser into the project. I set this to minus 15 dB. I then search for tom fill and drag Latin Groove tom fill into the project. I position this sample on the last bar of my sequence and set its track to minus 3 dB. Now I have everything I need to make an arrangement. I begin the arrangement with the string stab and 909. On bar 5, the breakbeat comes in. On bar 9, the funk guitar comes in. On bar 13, the percussion loop joins the mix. The bass drops on bar 17. On bar 25, the vocals are added. Bar 33 sees the vocal and funk guitar swap out for the organ. On bar 41, the vocals return. On bar 49, the track starts to wind down, with the vocals and organ dropping out. On bar 57, we have a drums, bass, and string stabs outro. Remember, you could fork this project and make your own version of it using the link in the video description. Have fun!